Economy next. The latest figures on GDP came out this morning. Growth was a bit slower than expected. Ed Conway is here for us with all of the key bits of data. Ed, good morning again.
Do you want me to? Shall I just whiz through the charts really quickly?
Don't whiz.
No, because I know you requested something on gilt yields. And therefore, we need to get through this stuff so we can get to your chart.
Yeah, well,
I'm conscious of.
We're on the same page then.
I'm conscious. Okay. Well, so listen. Most important stuff is the fact, apart from Wolf's charts, is the fact that the economy. We just got the latest numbers on how well the economy is doing. That's growth. You know, that is how much income is being generated, how well off people are feeling. And here's the number. Here's the one to focus on. I'll kind of squeeze out the way there. That's the latest data, Q3. And it's only 0.1%. It's a little bit weaker than expected, basically. So 0.1% there. But here's what's interesting. So that's looking at the total amount of gross domestic product, which is just, you know, how much income we're generating across the economy. But what you really want to do to get a sense of how well off we're all feeling is to take these numbers and to convert them into GDP by head. And that gives you a sense of just how much money, extra money we're generating across the entire economy, divided by head of the population. And do that, and look at the bars, look at how they're all a little bit low. And you'd expect that because obviously the population's growing, particularly with what's happened to immigration recently. And actually the number is 0. So GDP per head in the latest quarter is 0%, is flatlining. And in both cases, whether it's the headline GDP or whether it's GDP per head, that is the weakest number since Labour came into office. So, you know, coming ahead of the budget, this is going to be a disappointment, I think, to Rachel Reeves. Worth just saying, you know, one of the big factors behind this, if you're going to strip away what's going on, the big picture, that's the big picture. What are the different parts of the economy and how well they were doing? We've all seen the stories about Jaguar Land Rover and the fact that they've had to kind of down tools due to that cyber attack. How much of an impact has that had on the motor industry? Now, this chart, all this is showing you is the car industry and car manufacturing, and it goes all the way back to the 1990s. Now, I want to pull this out, even though it looks kind of almost like a heartbeat here. And you see, the most obvious thing you can see there is that's COVID. So that's basically factories shutting down during the lockdown and then kind of coming back on operation. But here's what's interesting, OK? So aside from COVID, this fall in September of 28.6%, that is, I think, the biggest fall that we've seen for the car industry in a single month. So this was massive in terms of the impact, and then that has fed into wider GDP. So that's the car industry. How does the UK compare elsewhere around the world? You're always hearing this, aren't you, from politicians about how we are world-leading or indeed not. Well, here is our GDP in Q3 compared with France and Canada and indeed Germany and Italy. And where are we? Well, we're kind of in the middle of a not particularly distinguished pack. We've yet to get the numbers from the US. Questions, Mark, as to whether we actually get them due to the shutdown. But finally, last but not least, Wolf asked about gilt yields, and I think it's worth just looking at the chart on gilt yields and to ask the question of whether they come down. This, of course, is the government's borrowing rate and just how much we are being charged as a nation to borrow out there. This is going back to 2021. I've taken the 30-year gilt yield, and indeed, that has started to come down. OK, so that has come down in the last kind of 3-4 weeks. But also, actually, if you compare the UK, and you know, the higher this is, the more we're all having to pay for our borrowing. If you compare the UK to other countries around the G7, the gap there, which remember, you know, back before the mini budget, we were kind of middle of the pack. We were kind of, you know, when people were deciding whether they're going to lend money to us, they were kind of charging us a similar rate, or at least a medium rate compared with the rest of the G7. In recent years, we've kind of gone up, and I think that's the concern for Rachel Reeves, is that is narrowing, and that she'll be kind of reassured by that. But we're still above the rest of the G7. So Wolf was right. They have come down with some caveats.
The trend, I mean, on borrowing costs obviously is bad over the course of the last year. Over the course of the last week or two, it's less bad, despite things like... Do you know what the worst... I've sadly had time to dwell on lots of that. The worst thing about those charts is how much of an effect on our overall car manufacturing just one company's shutdown had. It just shows how little car manufacturing we have now.
Yeah, it's totally...
One company, and it falls that much.
28%
Amazing job.
It's crazy.
Ed, great stuff as always. Thank you very much.